I think the best way to tell the story would probably be to start from the beginning, a little bit about my childhood, coming to Holy Family, and then moving on to the U and a few of the lessons that I've learned along the way. A few things that I wish I would have done when I was a kid, and a few things that advice I would give to others. So, growing up, I lived in Hutchinson, Minnesota. It's about a 45-minute drive from here, just west. I grew up with 3 siblings, as Dave said. Brooke was the oldest, and then Hunter and Jackson was younger than me, so I was the 3rd kid. And I think ever since I can remember, we were constantly doing something as a family, or constantly doing some kind of event, some kind of sport, whether we're at the park or some kind of organized event. We were always doing something together, and everything for us turned into a competition, because that's just what you do when you have siblings. And I think what that did for me as a person is it kind of instilled a mindset of always wanting to win. Like, I like to win, and winning's fun, but I absolutely hate losing, and that's kind of what that taught me. And a lot of those games I would play with my brothers, and everything would turn into a fight somehow, especially when we were younger. We would compete in baseball or video games, and I even remember one time Jackson and I got into a fight because we were on our way to hockey practice in the cities, and we were racing to see who could count the most raindrops that got to the other side of the window. And it turned into a fist fight in the car ride, which is crazy to think about now, but when you're a kid, the last thing I want to do is lose to this guy. So, and talking about going to the cities, we would play summer hockey there, and it was 2007, 2008, 9, and this is during the recession. So gas is $5 a gallon. We're driving an old Suburban, and my parents were driving me there 4 times a week after working. And I, just thinking back now, as I got older and matured a little bit and think about it a little bit more, is I cannot for the life of me understand how they possibly did that for me. So just being willing to sacrifice for me and my brothers and my family like that is just something that I will be forever grateful for. And I just can't wrap my mind around how you can put that much effort in every single day for multiple years at a time. So I'm very thankful for them and what they did for me growing up. But I kind of want to tell a little story, because it wasn't always, they were very kind about it, but it wasn't always the best, because when my dad would bring me to practice and we would have a game or a practice or something like that, and it was always, it felt like a little good cop, bad cop routine. When my dad would take me to practice, it was always, here's what you stink at, this is what you need to get better at, your stick's not on the ice, you're not playing hard enough, and this, that, and the third. And then when my mom would drive me to practice, she'd come home and was like, you did so great, like, this was awesome, your stick's always on the ice, you're always playing as hard as you can, I love it. So it was kind of a perfect balance to keep me from like, all right, now I need to work harder. And then my mom's like, well, you're doing a great job. So I think they just kept me like bouncing right on the line between insanity there. Like, do I really stink? I don't know, I can't remember. But I think looking back, growing up, and all the things that my parents instilled in me at a young age with work ethic, and you're never going to be the biggest, the tallest, the fastest, the strongest, but you're always going to be the one that works the hardest, and that's how you're going to get to where you want to be in life. I wish I would have listened to that a little bit earlier, because I think I was a little bit stubborn as a kid. I hated working on things that I wasn't good at. I knew that if I was going to get better at it, I had to do it, but I couldn't, like, for the life of me, bring myself to practice something that I stink at, because I didn't want to be bad at something. So that was a little bit growing up. And then we moved on to high school, and as a family, we were mostly interested in hockey, and we wanted to play AA hockey, because Hutchinson single A, we want to play against the best of the best in the state. So we were looking for the closest school that we could find that was a AA hockey program, and the closest that we found was Holy Family. small school in Victoria, and there's maybe 400 kids, 500 kids that go to the school. So kind of took a little bit of a leap there, going there, and I think it'll probably go down as one of the best decisions that we've ever made as a family, just because I came in as a freshman not knowing anybody. The only person I knew that went to the school was my older brother, who had just got there the year before, and I think within a day, every single person was just loving and accepting and willing to teach, willing to help you with anything that you needed. And I think that will go down as the best decision that we've made, just because we were able to, like we've been saying, build a bridge and meet a new community of people and get together and take the wisdom that other people have learned and meet new and grow together. Moving on through high school, so we were mainly focused about hockey, and that's what we played. That's what my older brother played, and that's what we all love to do. That was my first love. And I played freshman football, and I remember after the season was over, I was like, this isn't for me. So once, it's funny, Max Bergman, who was a year older than me, he got word of that, and then he told Coach Hopkins and Coach Barzik. And then the next thing I knew was I was walking by his class, like, come down to the team room later today. And I was like, great, I can't wait for this. But he basically just convinced me that he knew I had the ability, and he knew I had the mindset and mentality to be successful, and he convinced me to continue to play, which thankfully did, because when I was a freshman, when I came to Hoy Family, I think I was maybe 5'9", 170, 180. I was a tiny kid, long distance runner in middle school, and then by the time we were through my sophomore year, I had ballooned up to what I am now, which kind of took hockey out of the question. I couldn't really keep up anymore. Everybody was a lot faster and smaller than me. And I remember my mom, she was buying my khaki pants for me, and she had just bought a new pair at Christmas, and by February I had to get an entire new pair of wardrobe of clothes because my pants didn't fit around my waist anymore. So I also thank her for that and all the things that they did for me. I never had to question whether I could get a new pair of pants or something like that. They always took care of me and took care of my family, and we had no problems whatsoever. So moving on through high school, I played my sophomore and junior year, and my dad kind of sat me down. He's like, all right, what are you thinking about for college? I was like, well, I've always had this dream of going to the Air Force Academy and playing. I was like, I'll see if I can play football there and see if they'd have me. So I talked to Coach Hopkins about it, and he got their Midwest recruiter to come to the Hoy Family, and I talked to him, and he kind of ran me through all the things he had to do, which kind of opened my eyes. I had to get a letter from a senator, from the governor, letter of recommendation, and then another one. I had to get in contact with the liaison from the University of Minnesota, or not from the University of Minnesota, from the state of Minnesota, and go through a bunch of testing, go through a pass with all grades and everything like that. So going through sophomore and junior year, I had kind of worked to acquire all those things and all the things that I needed in order to go there. And at the start of my senior year, during that winter, I had done a medical testing for them, and one of the requirements that they have is 20/20 vision or correctable 20/20 vision, which I did not have, so I was ultimately denied from that school because I couldn't pass a medical exam. So I had just spent the last 2-3 years doing everything I could to get to that position, and then it was all just stripped away from me with an email. So I think that was the first time I had truly kind of dove into my faith a little bit. I had always gone to church as a kid, and going to the Holy Family and being able to take theology classes where I could learn about what I was actually going to church for and all the history behind it. I think I kind of just went through the motions. And then when that situation happened, it kind of, I won't say it forced me, but it kind of called me to understand that I need to rely on my faith here. It kind of felt like a calling to me. So I sat there and I was talking with my parents, and I was like, well, what do we do now? And we had came to the decision, had a long, hard discussion about even if I want to play football anymore. Is this something I want to do? Is this a long-term goal for me, or did I just want to go to the Air Force Academy and go from there? So we sat down, and I was like, well, I like playing the sport. I love playing the sport, and it's something that challenges me every day and something that forces me to improve every single day. So we talked to a couple other schools. I think we talked to St. Cloud and Sioux Falls. I think those were the only other really schools that had given me an opportunity to play. And I remember it was late December of my senior year, and Matt Simon, who's the wide receiver coach at the U right now, just sent me a text or a DM on Twitter, and it said, hey, if you're still looking for a place you can walk on here, and this is maybe 20 days before signing day, and I remember I just texted him out, yep, sure. So, not a really glamorous story about how I got to the U, but I got there nonetheless, and that's all I need. I just need to get my foot in the door. So I remember when I was training in March, and I was squatting, and I had a bunch of pain in my knee, and then I had gone the next week, and then I remember I felt like I didn't, it wasn't a pop, but something hurt, something felt off. So we went to the doc, and he said, well, I think the best way to do this would probably be to get surgery and just take it out, and you'll be like a $6 million man, back to better than you were before. So we did that, which I think gave myself a little unneeded problem, a little unneeded stress, because now I'm coming to a place where I go from being one of the best players on my team to now I'm one of the worst. And not only that, am I injured, and the only person that knows my name on campus is Matt Simon, and he's a wide receivers coach. So I didn't really set myself up for much success at the next level, but I think going through being injured, rehabbing, and finally being able to get to play again after camp and into the season, I think I had a little newfound perspective about my work ethic and who I really was as a person. What I kind of learned being there in the training room every day is because you meet all kinds of different people. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is that there's no monopoly on toughness, and there's no monopoly on work ethic. I've met people who have had everything, who are some of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life, and I've met people who had nothing, who work even harder. And then on the other side, there's people that I've met who have everything and they loaf around and go through the motions, and people who have come from nothing and have always relied on their talent and their natural skill who don't have the same work ethic. So I think that's a big lesson that I would want to teach my kids someday, is that it doesn't matter where you come from or what you have, that you can always have, like, the only thing you control is your work ethic and how hard you work. So it was like, I felt like I was in the battlefield. I would go out there every day, and there's a bunch of senior D linemen who are just slamming me left and slamming me right. And all of my other freshman buddies who are also linemen are doing the same thing. We just keep looking at each other, and you stare at someone, one of them's cross-eyed, you're like, all right. But, I think that was another moment where I had trusted in God, and I trusted in my parents, because I didn't think it was cut out for me. I thought, like, there's no way that this is how hard it can possibly be. I mean, I think I called my parents at the worst time. Like, at the worst of it, I was on the phone with my parents twice, 3 times a week. And then I would go home, because I didn't travel when I was a freshman. I'd go home, and I'd get a pump-up speech from both of them. I'd head back Monday, and then it would take me to about Wednesday, and I'd have to start calling me. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, guys. So I will always thank them for giving me something to lean on, and remember that I can still make it, and I still have a chance. And if the only way that I lose here is if I quit, and Like, the only thing I can control is if I quit or not, and do I want to live with the regret of quitting and not knowing what could have been, or do I want to stick it out and see what happens? Because I think the hardest thing in the world is not quitting, but I think the easiest thing in the world is to quit. But quitting is just like an easy way out. It's addictive, because if you're working out or something like that, or you're doing a test in school and you don't want to study anymore, like, I don't want to do it. And then you get a worse grade on a test, or maybe you sneak by and you get a passing grade. You did pretty well, but I didn't study. And then the next test, you don't feel like you have to study because you did it before and you did just fine, and you pass. It just becomes a habit. Like, quitting becomes a habit for you, and it's addictive, because working hard is the hardest thing you can do. You're putting in effort that you don't need to, but you're supposed to. I added this, but I kind of just want to tell maybe my favorite story about how my experience growing up and car rides home with my dad kind of prepared me for how coaching would be at the next level. So Kirk Shiraka was our offensive coordinator, and this is my sophomore year. I'm finally in the 2 deep, so I'm second string, and I'm taking reps at practice, and I had messed something up. And he just walks, doesn't say a word, walks up to me, and it's a little more colorful than I'm going to say, but he grabs my face mask, pulls me down, and he screams at me, he goes, F you, F you, F you. Walks away. Doesn't say another word. That's all. So we just all looked at each other like, yeah, okay. And then they blew the whistle, and we just did the play again. So I'll forever go down as my favorite story of being at the end. So I think what my dad had taught me is that nothing that I'm saying to you or nothing I'm coaching you on or yelling at you about is personal. I know that you're not giving everything you can, and if you continue to do this, you're not going to reach your full potential. So being able to learn that at a young age kind of prepared me for what I was going to be dealing with at the next level, or through the course of time. But after the 2019 season, I had stopped making enough of those mistakes where they finally put me on scholarship. And then it kind of was surreal to me, because you see a lot of the videos of people where it's a really cool showcase or big event or something like that. I was sitting at home during January break this time, and the day before I went to school, Coach Fleck called me. He's like, hey, I got a scholarship for me. I said, I'll take it. But later that year, they had taken me off scholarship in the summer of 2020. So I kind of had to make the decision to myself as like, well, am I going to sit here and pout and feel sorry for myself, or am I going to get back to work and do everything that I can to earn it back? And I think it was a pretty easy decision for me, just because I had done it for so long. It was second nature to me. There was no way I was going to let something like this deter me from continuing to play football. But a scholarship was kind of something nice on the other end. And playing football was the main point, going to school and getting my degree were the main points of why I was there. So ultimately, COVID hits, and then we have a few opt-outs, and then I get thrown in there as a starter, and we're playing Michigan my first week. And what Mike had talked about, where you kind of have a aha moment, like a little rude awakening, where I'm going against some of the best players in the country, and you get hit in the mouth by one of them. It's a lot different than getting hit by your teammates during practice. Like, those guys are coming for you, and they want to win, and they're going to do everything it takes to win, and they're some of the biggest, strongest guys in the country. So I think that opened my eyes, because I remember that was the hardest I've ever been hit. His name was Carlos Kemp. He was a D lineman for Michigan. He, very first play, hit me square in the face, and then my eyes started to water, and I said, wow, all right, this is a lot different than practice, and this hurts. But I got through the year, and I think it gave me a lot lot of lessons about, I thought I was working hard, but I really wasn't. I had a lot more that I could give, because I have the size, I have the strength and the athleticism in order to be successful, but I'm not doing everything I can to prepare myself for the opportunity when it comes to me. So moving into the next year, 2021, everybody was back. So I was back to being a second string again, and I continued to work. And what I told myself at the beginning of the season was, I had just started in the Big Ten, that I can't go from that to not playing at all. So I just did everything I could to find a way to get onto the field, and that ultimately ended up in me playing like a tight end position, which is something that I've never done. All of a sudden I'm meeting with tight end coaches about, and they're talking about running routes that I would never run and I would never be a part of, but just learning a different part of the game, because every position is its own little world, and you split off from the main group, and then you go to that, and then that's where you do your meetings, and you go to practice, and you're with them the entire time. And it kind of gave me a new perspective of how broad the game is and how everybody works together in order to make like the whole machine run. And, I think that was the best thing for me, because it kind of opened my eyes into how much I still had left to learn and how much harder I could really work to learn the different parts of the offense. And after that season was over, I had done well enough where I had earned the starting job for this year. And I did this more work than I had ever done in my life. I had watched more film than I ever have combined this last year alone, in order to just give myself a chance of being successful, because I had shown in 2020 that like being a starter doesn't mean that you're gonna succeed. It doesn't mean that you have what it takes to be a good player. But just because you're a starter, there's nobody else. But I think I did a good job of taking advantage of my opportunity this last year. And looking back at it, when you're there, every day is kind of under a microscope, and it's just get through today, and then we'll see what tomorrow has in store for us. But kind of being done now, getting a chance to look back at everything, and going from someone who was injured, there's nobody there that knows my name, I'm a walk-on, and I'm just like a face that they expect to be gone in a couple of years from now, and going to earning a scholarship, graduating, being close to being done with a master's degree, being a starter and being an all Big Ten starter. It kind of makes me proud of myself for kind of makes all the work that I did worth it, looking back at the big picture of it. But I think I'm going to take a lot of the things that I learned coming from these last 6 years of experience and the 4 years that I had at Holy Family, and all the adversity that I've been through, and all the rejections that I've been told, and all the people that have said, you'd just be another cog in the wheel, and try my luck at the next level and see what that has in store for me. And I think if you show up on time consistently, you work as hard as you can, there's a place for you anywhere. And if the NFL doesn't have opportunity for me, or if that doesn't work out for me, then I know that I'll be in a good space, and I'll have a good chance of being successful later in life, just because of the lessons that I've learned growing up. So that's me. That's my story. If and you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Lose the scholarship. What was the decision they had to make for you?
Well, what I had been told was that so when seniors graduate, they don't need a scholarship for the next semester, because they have graduated, they're done. So there was open spots for the spring and the summer, and then they take it away for freshmen that are coming in, which I didn't know at the time until I was told I was being taken off. But it turned out how it did. But I was just thankful that I got a chance to be on it at all. So, yeah.
What's the best thing about being a student athlete?
I would say just the fact that you get to experience both sides of the coin a little bit. The way I did it, and I know other people do it differently, but I kind of treated school as a second life, like something outside of football where I don't have to worry about a play that I messed up or something like that, or what the install for the day is, what plays we're going to be running that day. I get to be a student, and I get to talk to people who aren't in that building every day, and I get to meet people and make friends who aren't associated with that whatsoever, and it kind of gives you a nice little, not a work-life balance, but something along those lines. Yeah.
You talked about putting your trust in God. How else did your faith help you as a student athlete?
Well, I would say I didn't do a very good job of having my faith help me, because I only relied on God during the difficult times of my career and when the times where I was struggling. But it gave me a pillar that I could lean on and something that I could rely on in order to make it through something that was difficult or something that I didn't think I was going to be able to make it through. I think that's probably the biggest reason why I didn't quit, is that I knew that if I can get through this, it's going to be a lot brighter on the other side of the road. Yep.
Well, I'd like to ask you if you would be able to beat P.J. Fleck in the 100-yard dash. And your question would be, what was your favorite victory against him?
Well, for the first question, no. maybe if he tripped and fell or had to run backwards or something like that. But my favorite win I would say, probably either Wisconsin this year or Penn State in 2019 was an awesome game, because we had never won anything really that big, or on not that big of a stage for the first 3 years that we've been playing, or 2.5 years. And I think that kind of springboarded us to realize that we do have a chance to, in order to be a good team in this league, we deserve some kind of respect. Yes?
First, I want to thank you for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you.
Because I know it's not easy, especially for someone who doesn't do this on a regular basis. But secondly, I want to know what qualities do you admire most about your parents?
Number one is definitely selflessness. I would say, how many can I give? As many as I want. Selflessness, work ethic, caring, just being able to be whatever I need whenever I need it. If I need a coach, if I need someone to support me, if I need someone to drive me somewhere, anything I need, they were there for me, which a lot of people aren't as lucky as I am to have parents like I did, who were able to give me really anything I needed when I wanted or needed it. Which there's growing up now and realizing kind of what the real world is a little bit. College really isn't the real world, but seeing life in a different lens just made me realize how much more grateful I am for everything that they had done for me and everything that they continue to do for me. Going home during break, there's always a meal, there's always food somewhere. They always check in to see if there's anything we want to do, or if everything's okay, if you need something, which it's invaluable, really, which I am forever grateful for. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Axel. I'm interested a little bit in the Holy Family aspect of your background.
Yeah.
I oftentimes think of Holy Family as Victoria's High School.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool when you think about it. And Johnny gives me a prepared question to ask, but he's my neighbor, so I can go with something different. At Holy Family, aside from Mr. Parsons, we know a lot of the teachers and a lot of Aside from Mr. Parsi, can you name another teacher or person that was at Holy Family that really influenced how your maturity developed?
Well, besides Parzik or Hopkins, I would say they don't count. And I would say there's two, but not to be biased with her husband being here, but Ache was, I think she was the first teacher that I really had that I was scared to not do good work or turn my work in on time. Like if I show up to class and I had a missing assignment, I literally was shaking. She scared the daylights out of me. But I appreciate her being able to hold me accountable to the level that I needed to be at the time, being a young teenager who didn't really think school was the most important thing in the world at the time. And the other one I would say, I would probably say Mr. U. Mr. U or Nathan Schlepp did a really good job too. Andy Wichter was great as well. Dr. Potabom, Mr. Bosch, Mrs. Bosch, dang. But all those people were so welcoming to someone who didn't know anybody or was coming from someplace 45 minute 50 drive to school every single day and starting a fresh slate. I think they all had a big impact on my development, being able to, I don't figure out how to word it, saying that they were, it sounds kind of wrong, but they kind of took me in as their own son, which I think was huge for me, being as nervous as I was coming to that school. But those people, definitely.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
What made you choose human resources to study, and what type of career do you envision for yourself in that field?
Yeah, so my undergrad was in business management, and I had graduated in 2020, and then it came the time to pick a master's since I was going to continue playing for a couple more years, and kind of sat there and talked about what my strengths are and what things that I excel at, and I think I do a good job at working with people and being someone who enjoys a challenge of fixing something. So I think the field that I want to go through or the route I want to go is consulting, just because I think being able to analyze a situation and then work with them, learn who they are and how they tick, and then make a fix that is best suited for them as a team or a company or a person was something that really intrigued me. So, yeah, Joe.
At Notre Dame, my roommate is a defensive tackle. He's fighting for a spot with us, starting spot on the football team next year. So if I could come back to him with any advice, because you've been in that situation, what's one thing I can tell him?
My advice whenever someone asks me anything like that would just be, it's not like a get rich quick, but it's just improve every single day at something. And don't write yourself a list of 15 different things that you need to improve on and then work on them all in one day, or try to do them all every single day. Just pick one or two things, 3 things if you're feeling frisky. And I learned a lot from Coach Fleck, but just to start off, I would say that I don't think there's any people in the world that are more different than me and PJ Fleck, just energy-wise and being as vocal as he is and as off the walls as he is. But I think we both have the same drive to succeed, and both have the same willingness to put in the work to be successful, which I think what makes us mesh so well together. But learning from him would be, I think I learned to not give up and just do not quit from him mostly, because that's what his mantra is all, that's what rollerboat's all about, is that as long as you don't quit, you continue to give yourself a chance to be successful. Because the only way you lose is if you quit. That's probably the biggest thing that I've learned from him in my 6 years of being there. Pat?
You know, you talked a little bit when you told the story about playing Michigan in that first play. I'm curious, you know, this is the biggest or the highest, you know, level of high school or college football, right? So when you're in a big game, maybe you're playing Michigan at Michigan or Penn State at Penn State or Madison at Madison. It's the end of a ball game. You know, you're driving and you have these guys across from you and the crowd's going crazy. The feeling that you have in that moment, is it excitement? Is it calm? Is it fear? What are you dealing with emotionally, like in those moments?
In the moments at the end of the game, I would definitely say it's probably the calmest that you'll ever be. Just because you've come all the way from wherever you were at the beginning of the season and got to that point, and then you're insanely nervous before the game, and then you've gone through and you've seen everything that they do, and you've settled in, and now it's just time I worked the last 8 months, 9 months, or however long it was for this exact moment. I have no choice but to do it right. And like there's nothing that they can show me that I haven't seen, and there's nothing that my coach is going to call that I haven't run enough to where I could do it with my eyes closed. So I would say the biggest emotion during that time is just calm and executing.
And then as a follow-up, how good did it feel to be on the ice at the Holy Family Alumni Hockey game a couple weeks ago?
Skating or on the ice?
Skating.
I know there's a video out there of me catching an edge, but that's the first time that I've ever skated 5-on-5 since my last game, my senior year of high school. So I think it was a little quick for me. They were a little fast and didn't sharpen my skates. So it was fun to see those guys again and be able to lace them up and still got it. So yeah, Dave.
Back to the spring of 2020, maybe even the summer, I think the Big Ten commissioner made a statement that they were going to cancel the fall season. We've heard a lot of conversations, and I would love to hear more about, you know, what did you talk about with your mom and dad? But most of all, like, what were some discussions you had with your teammates when you found out that the fall football season was going to be canceled?
Well, you guys knew as much as we did during that time, because we knew absolutely no idea what was going on, because it was changing every single day. And I remember we were going through camp, and there was kind of this like looming cloud that was going to be canceled. When it felt like we were just practicing just for the sake of practicing. And it eventually did get canceled, and then we continued to practice after that, and everybody's, what is going on? So I think they might have known something that we didn't, and I would never want to go back to that again. That was terrible. You had no idea what the next day was going to be, and there was no structure going on, but some of the conversations that we had were is this just going to be forever? Are we just going to practice forever and then not play until next year? Or are we going to play in the spring? And then all of a sudden, he had called us into the indoor, and there's all 100 players, 115 players, and then all the staff had came in, and he's like, yeah, we're going again. So then we had practice later that day, on our first day without practice in a while. So that was just a really crazy time that I know everybody went through. And I think the biggest challenge of not knowing what the next day has in store was probably the worst part of it, for me at least. Yeah.
Alex, I just have to say, as a parent, thank you for sharing your heart and the responsibility of a parent to always give hope.
Yeah.
You had beautiful parents that did that for you. And you just seemed like a giant with the gentlest heart. And we all want to live up to that. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.